Hello and welcome back to the Posturecise crash course. I'm Paula Moore, the posture doctor, and this is video 2 of a 3-part series. So today's video is all about how to correct forward head posture. If you're here, it's probably because you know you have forward head posture. Maybe you've seen past pictures of yourself. Perhaps you've developed an ugly, unattractive neck hump associated with forward head posture. And maybe you've been trying to hide your posture with your clothing for years, high collars, scarves. Whatever got you here, my aim is to help you correct or greatly improve your posture. So before we jump into the exercises, I'd like to define forward head posture. So forward head posture is the forward position of the head relative to the shoulders. And in fact, there's an easy measurement that you can do. Take a look at this next video, get your measurement, see how much forward head posture that you have, and use that number to monitor your improvement and progress as we carry on with the exercises.
So let's start with the first mark. So the first mark is done on the earlobe. And for ladies, it's a bit easier because we've got a little mark where our pierced ears might have been, and we can get a good center point there. This is great to do in front of a mirror if you're doing it on your own, so you can get the center point. Maybe even go a little bigger than the mark that I've created on my earlobe, because shortly we'll be taking a picture from about 2 meters away, and we want this to show up clearly. The second mark is at the shoulder, here on the side. Start with your arm at 90 degrees with your thumb pointing up, and bring the arm close to the body. Drop down an inch from the very top of the shoulder. That's where you're going to mark it. Halfway between the back and the front. Not the skin on the back and front, but as you squeeze in to the bone. So it's the bone halfway between, and that's the mark. Drop down an inch, halfway between the two bones, and draw in a nice round circular mark.
Now you have a number, the number that represents your amount of forward head posture. Keep that handy and redo the self-analysis every few weeks so that you can monitor your progress when using the forward head posture correction exercises. Now we're going to start the exercises. And before we do that, as part of the exercises, we need to warm up the neck. Now, I want you to take a look at 2 movements I'm going to show you now. 2 ways that we can move the neck. Now there are plenty more than just 2, and in a moment I'm going to stop the video to see if you can work out as many of the movements for the neck that are possible. So let's look at 2 of the movements now. We've got forward bend and backward bend. Now those are just 2 of the movements possible with the neck. I'm going to stop the video now and see how many you can come up with, and then I'll meet you back in a minute. So, how did you do? There are actually 12 possible movements that the head and neck can do. Now, it's time for a little math lesson. Remember this? Well, this is what we're going to use to determine the number of movements possible in the neck. So I want you to grab a hold of your hand, create a pistol with the right hand only, please, like pow, and then add in the extra finger here. Now, if you remember back to math, and maybe you never took this, it's not that important, but it's a great little way to help you remember the warm-up exercises that you're going to be doing at the office. So, in math, we learned that there were axes. There was an axis called the x-axis that ran horizontally. There was another axis called the y-axis that runs vertically. Now there's a third axis, and it's called the z-axis. It's the one coming right out towards you. So there you have it, the x, y, and z-axis. You need never remember those names again, but you will need your hand to remember these. So let's start with the x-axis and look at all the movements your head and neck can do around this axis. So first of all, the head can move around the axis and back around. Let's look at those. So that was forward flexion and extension. And you'll want to go ahead and do 4 or 5 of those to warm up the neck. Now the second movement along the axis is back and forth. We call this a shift or a translation. Can you think of how the head might move along the x-axis in that way? It looks a bit like this. This is a movement, part of the warm-up, that's very tricky to do. Initially you'll want to do this, but it's really important that it's a definite shift. Think about Frankenstein bolts staying level along that horizontal axis, the x-axis. So we've got 4 movements now. Are you starting to see that 4 plus 4 plus 4 gives us 12 possible movements? So here we go. Let's look at the x again. And translations or shifts. And if you hear crunching and grinding, not to worry, that's just ligaments and tendons moving about in the neck. Let's look at another axis. Let's look now at the y-axis. And again, we talked about the movements that would go around and back again. Around and back. What movements do you think those are? If you guessed turning to the right and left, you're correct. Turning the head right and left, and right, and left. Now again, 4 of each is a good part of the warm-up. So we've now done the circular movements, but we can also move along the axis, the y-axis, up and down. Well, what do those look like? If I'm moving my head straight up, that's what we call traction. You may have had traction from a chiropractor or a physio where they're lengthening the spine. What about the opposite? Moving down the y-axis. Well, that's a bit of compression. Traction, compression. That one's a hard one to do. Traction, compression. So those are the 4 movements along the y-axis. And now all that's left is the z-axis, the one coming right out toward you. So what would it look like to move around and back again? Can you think of those movements? If you said side bending, you're right. And again, you don't need to move maximally. This is just a warm-up. You can do it sitting or standing like I'm doing. Right and left. Now, how would we move along the z-axis? If you guessed, forward into forward head posture, you're right. And then moving back would be tucking in again at the chin. This will be similar to the exercise we're doing in a moment. Forward and back again, and forward. So let's do a bit of a test and see how well you've been concentrating. So the reason we want the axes, right hand, X, Y, and Z, is to remember all the movements. There's 4 in each axis. So what are the movements moving along the x-axis in this rotation movement? Right, flexion, extension, or forward bend and back bend. What are the movements turning around the y-axis? Yes, left turn and right turn. What about the movements along the z-axis, the ones going towards the camera and back again? If you answered forward into forward head posture and back into a chin tuck, you're correct. So that is the warm-up. You'll simply move through all ranges of movement, all 12 movements. It may take several minutes, but it's really important that the neck is warm, number one, to prevent injury, and number two, to get you the absolute best results so that you can correct or greatly improve your forward head posture. So now we're going to learn how to begin to correct our forward head posture using the simple chin tuck. Now watch the next video and practice along with the video, and I'll see you back in a moment. The first thing you want to do is jut your chin forward slightly. That's it. And just bring it in a little bit of a double chin. Start with the small movements with these again. And right in. The key is that Etienne is bringing his ears back over the shoulders where they belong, where he has a mechanical advantage. Right in again, tall from the head, and out, and right back in. Lovely. Continue doing those. Now the good thing with the chin tucks is you can do these at any time of the day, especially if you're an office worker. But do remember, if you've got any history of any neck trouble at all, that you must check with your healthcare provider before doing chin tucks. So how was that? The chin tuck is a great little exercise. I usually do 10 repetitions several times a day, whether I'm sitting at my desk, standing at the bank, or going to the toilet. Just find ways to get creative with that one. And of course, there are a lot more exercises you could do, over 21 in fact, for your head, neck, and shoulders that I've included in the fuller version of Posturecise. And I will be giving you a link to that at the end of the crash course. So in 2 days' time, video 3 is coming your way. Be sure to check your email inbox. And that video is how to fix your slouch back. And remember, I said there was a secret to correcting your slouch back that isn't really being taught, and I think it's going to help you. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Do continue to practice creating a new habit and getting rid of that unattractive forward head posture. And I'll see you in 2 days' time. Thank you for watching. See you soon. Bye-bye.